Hey guys, Emily from Autofy wanted to talk to you today about one of our workflow templates. Our workflow templates are really an easy way to get started with your syncs. We have some great templates already built out for you based off of what a lot of our customers do. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't create new steps or add additional workflows, but this is just a really good way to get you started with your sync if you're just starting out with Autofy. So when we're creating a new workflow, we have this add new workflow button over here to the left. Now, if you're getting started for the very first time, the first time you log in, this is a screen that you're gonna see. What we're gonna talk about today is this particular workflow template right here, the QuickBooks Desktop to Salesforce template. I'm gonna go ahead and click on Go and set up my connections real quick here. When I click on Create Workflow for this QuickBooks Desktop and Salesforce workflow template, you have 3 steps in this particular template or workflow. Now, there is one last step that you don't see on this page that runs every time you run a full sync, and that's your sparse update. That's something that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Now, our very first step here, you can see that we will be syncing a Salesforce opportunity to a QuickBooks invoice. Real simple. Any of our opportunities in Salesforce, we want to sync them over as invoices into QuickBooks. Now, what's important to note here on this configuration tab is we're telling you pretty much what we're doing, why or how something's going to get picked up. So we are going to get opportunities from Salesforce that were created or modified since this specific date. This date right here is your last successful sync time. So what that means is that if a record was created or modified since this particular date, it will get picked up in the first process on this step of the sync. So we're going to start to look for any records that were created or modified since December 11th at 6 p.m. The next thing that we do is look at the when. In the when, those are your filters. So we're looking at opportunities when the stage name equals closed won. That's only when we want an opportunity to sync over to QuickBooks as an invoice. So opportunities in a different status other than closed won will get filtered out. They won't error out, they just get filtered out. They're not included in the sync over to QuickBooks. You do have the ability to add additional filters if you need, but we're just going to keep on with this particular step how it is. There's also a preference right here called strict mode. And what this does is it prevents records from being created in QuickBooks if the related data isn't found. Now, to break that down a little bit, you may have an account in Salesforce that's brand new, but it does not exist in QuickBooks yet. When strict mode is turned on, that means that this particular record is not going to sync because we're going to be unable to find that matching customer record in QuickBooks. If you want the sync to create those new customers for you during this step, you'll just want to make sure that you uncheck this option right here and click Save up at the top of the screen. Otherwise, any new accounts that you've created in Salesforce that don't exist in QuickBooks that have opportunities associated with them will not sync over to QuickBooks. And then last but not least, it's showing you that we're going to be inserting our closed won opportunities that were created or modified since this date as invoices in QuickBooks. Our next step on our workflow template is to sync QuickBooks customers to Salesforce accounts. And again, the process is the same. So we're going to be looking at QuickBooks customers that were created or modified since this specific date. We can add filters if we want to. And then we have a preference right here that says only update records. What that means is if Autofy finds an exact match of the customer name in the Salesforce account, all we're going to do is update information. If Autofy does not find the exact match of that account name in Salesforce, we're not going to insert a brand new record when only update records is selected. If you do want Autofy to create new Salesforce accounts based off QuickBooks customers, you'll just uncheck Preferences, make sure you click Save up at the top. And then our third step, we're syncing QuickBooks items into Salesforce products. It's working the same as our other steps as well. We're getting items from QuickBooks that were created or modified since a specific date when those items are active. So when is active is equal to true. That means that it's not going to pick up any inactive items out of QuickBooks and sync them over to Salesforce. We have the same preference on this step that says only update records, which means it will not be inserting any new products into Salesforce. Now, the fourth step that you don't see on this page runs behind the scenes, and that is called our sparse update. What happens when you run a full sync? We're sending opportunities to invoices. Your customer and item steps can run. And then that last and final step is a sparse update. And what that's doing is it's sending back information to Salesforce from that invoice object in QuickBooks. What it's going to send back is the invoice number, the invoice date, and the open balance of the invoice. So of course that means what the unpaid balance is. So every single time your sync runs, that open balance will get updated on opportunities that have synced to QuickBooks. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to adjust my dates on here. I don't want to pull too much information. So I'm just going to adjust my timestamps. And we're actually going to run a full sync. Once I've made my changes to these timestamps, I do want to go ahead and click Save. Once I'm ready to run this, I am going to go ahead and click this overall sync button. And this is going to run my entire sync, meaning it's going to go through every step on my workflow. And it's going to pick up opportunities that meet these parameters, the date, the filters. Same thing with any new customers that have been created or maybe modified in QuickBooks, and any items that maybe have been created or modified in QuickBooks. And I'm going to go ahead and hit sync. Now, best practices would be not to hit this button until you've run several single record syncs on every single step, just to test to make sure that data is syncing as you expect it to. But we're going to go ahead and hit sync. And this is going to run our full sync. In this pop-up window, we can see the progress that's being made. It's letting us know that we're starting the sync process. It's going to validate our connections, Salesforce to QuickBooks. And right here, I can see the records that are matching my filters. Anything that has the gray dot means it's getting filtered out, so it didn't mean one of my parameters. Anything that has the green means that it did sync successfully. So I can see what my sync is doing while it's running. And it's going to continue to run through all of those steps. My opportunity to invoice, my customer to accounts, my items to products, and then it's going to run that last and final step that you can't see, which is that sparse update, taking invoice information and sending back any updates to their original opportunities in Salesforce. As you can see, nice quick sync ran. I had some items, some records that did not sync. They filtered out, which is not an error, but they did filter out because maybe they didn't exist. They didn't meet our parameters. So that's how easy it is to get started with your sync using one of our workflow templates. You do have the ability to go in and adjust mapping, turn steps on and off if you wish. And that is how your Salesforce and QuickBooks Desktop workflow template is going to work for you. Make sure you guys take a minute, hit that subscribe button down below. If you have questions about this workflow template, reach out to us at support@getautofy.com.